In that early paper about smart tourism, we defined smart tourism in a very specific way. And I want to remind us, I'm sure you've heard all sorts of things already about smart tourism, but there's some different opinions about smart. A destination kind of gets together to create this ecosystem, and within this ecosystem, then they have integrated efforts to collect and aggregate and use data. And that data can come from many different sources, right? It can come from the physical infrastructure, it can come from human behaviors, from social interactions, it can come from governments, it can even come from the brains or the bodies of people. So if you think about wearable technology like a smart watch or even smart glasses, or in the future maybe even clothing, all these potential sources of data come together in smart tourism. And in order to really do something with that data, first of all, to collect it, and then also to transform it, and then to create experiences based on that data, we need advanced technologies. So smart tourism means that we implement kind of a collection of advanced technologies at the destination level or at an individual business level to really create value co-creation opportunities. So the businesses need to be able to tap into that data, and the consumers need to have an opportunity to consume these technology-mediated experiences. Very much individual kinds of things, individual websites, individual apps. As I said, smart tourism is about an ecosystem and therefore system thinking. So it's a more holistic kind of approach. And in e-tourism, it's very much about individual players. If you think about e-tourism like TripAdvisor or Expedia, C-Trip, you name it, around the world, Airbnb. In smart tourism, it's about these partnerships. And these partnerships can be private companies doing partnerships, but also government and industry partnering, and then government, industry, and consumers, and as I said, maybe even the education sector. So the universities become part of these partnerships as well. And the critical thing is that smart tourism really goes beyond tourism. So these partnerships happen with technology companies. So smart tourism challenges a little bit what we think about when we think tourism, right? It's in e-tourism, we have a clear value chain still. We have a clear tourism industry, whereas in smart tourism, that industry really doesn't exist anymore. It really becomes an ecosystem, and whoever wants to play is allowed and invited to play. And so it becomes a much more blurry kind of concept, but also much more dynamic and a much more flexible ecosystem that doesn't, say, oh, you have to pay tourism tax and then you can benefit from smart tourism. No, or these kinds of weird things. You have to be a member of this association in order to count as a tourism organization. Those things fall away with smart tourism. So the smart tourism experience then, for me as a destination, means that it is definitely enhanced by technology, and it is supported by big data. But the two together, they need to be context driven, right? It's a very context aware kind of experience. But on top of that sits the meaning. So it also needs to be a very engaging and meaningful experience. Otherwise, people will not really not enjoy it, or will not learn from it, and will not probably not be using the technology for very long if that is not the case. So one of the big applications in this experience layer is really visitor management. And this is from the practical point of view, a lot of destinations are really struggling with tourism kind of like getting out of hand. And this creates a lot of conflict. We see here a picture of Venice in Italy, where there's constantly fights where people say, you have to do something, there's way too many tourists, no one can enjoy the city anymore. And so one of the big things that smart tourism promises is that it can actually direct people in a playful and meaningful and context aware and personalized way that kind of is much more fun and natural than putting up a barrier and say, you cannot go there, right? So you are trying to incentivize movement. So it also increases mobility, right? Because it's easier to move around, and it increases the quality of the experience that people have. All right, let's talk a little bit about COVID. Now, smart tourism, it needs funding. All of these things cost money, right? And neither tourism businesses nor governments have a lot of money right now. So also in many places, international tourism has collapsed. There's maybe now it's starting slowly, although in some places in Europe, it's already getting worse again. So it's a constant, is it open or not? So there's a lot of uncertainty in international tourism. There's also a lot of pressure to use technology for other things and to use the budget for other things. Governments now have to worry about health, right? And education and you know, our people who are out of work. So the redistribution of public resources is a big issue because tourism needs government funding, especially if we want to do these big infrastructure projects. Now, a lot of what we talked about is mostly happening in urban areas. And I don't know how the situation is in Korea, but in North America and Europe, a lot of people left the cities because of COVID. They moved to the suburbs or even to the countryside because now they can work from home. And so they don't have to live in a very small apartment in New York City or in San Francisco where they pay a lot of money. They now live on a farm somewhere in California and are enjoying the environment. So I don't know, is it something that happened in Korea as well, that people maybe move to smaller cities or maybe more rural areas? So my last topic for you guys is really about what's next, right? Wow. What's happening? And so we have started to think about this metaverse, right? And when Professor Khu invited me for a session at the next conference about this, it was still kind of like, you know, a very small or maybe more academic idea, and then suddenly everything has been happening in this space. So if we think about if smart tourism is the combination of the physical and the digital, right, then metaverse tourism is the physical, the digital, and the virtual. So there's another layer here. So we are expanding this notion of extended reality becomes really important. And there's a lot happening, and there was a lot happening during COVID. if you can watch this video if you want, but basically it will show you an event that happened in Fortnite where Travis Scott gave a concert. And that was a big, big event. It was one of the biggest events ever. Millions of people attended this event. And it has really shown what is possible in this metaverse, and that this now is becoming part of how we interact and how we consume and how we actually enjoy our leisure time. So it's not just a few gamers somewhere having these crazy experiences. It's a massive amount of consumers engaging. I don't know if you can hear it, but you can see it a little bit. This is kind of like also the quality of the graphics and everything is absolutely amazing.